Our breaking news at this hour, Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN had it first. Russell Westbrook is a Washington Wizard. He has been traded from Houston to Washington. The Rockets will be getting John Wall, a 2023 first-round pick, in return. This is a fascinating move. The Wizards last year were in the bubble for about 10 minutes. They did not formally make the playoffs. The Rockets were in the playoffs, got bounced unceremoniously by the Lakers in the Western Conference semis in 5 games. Dylan, just your initial reactions to this trade, a real blockbuster in the NBA. John Wall has not played in nearly 2 years. He goes off to Houston. Russell Westbrook, after just 1 year with the Rockets, moves over to Washington in the Eastern Conference, which, as we know, near the bottom, Wizards could wind up getting a playoff spot out of this.
Absolutely. Well, for one thing, that's the thing about the NBA is that no team is. There are maybe 2 or 3 teams that are truly out of the playoff picture. Most everybody else, whether you're good or not, you got a shot at the playoffs in some way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, what's interesting about this trade is that, and we were talking a little bit about this before the show, is that these are 2 teams where something clearly needed to be fixed, something needed to happen in order to improve the team. But to be honest, I couldn't tell you in either scenario what exactly needed to happen. So I guess this trade, which is truly out of nowhere, of the Rockets who I thought were going to be traded this week, it was not Russell Westbrook. This does really feel like both of these teams are just rolling the dice and seeing, we might as well try this.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at it that way. And you emphasized the last-minute nature of this trade. Adrian Wojnarowski, who I referenced before, tweeted this out shortly after breaking the news. The 2 GMs, Tommy Shepard of the Wizards, Rafael Stone of the Rockets, who just took over for Daryl Morey, had not talked in weeks about this deal. One called the other this afternoon. They had a deal done in a few hours. So, hey, who knows? Who knows? I want to read you a few numbers here that I quickly put together before our show started. So, John Wall, of course, has not played since December 29th, 2018. He is expected to be ready for the start of the season, but still, that's almost 2 years. So that is a big wild card in this trade. So because of that, we'll start with Russell Westbrook. He's 32. He played for the Rockets last year. It was not a great fit with James Harden. If you look at the usage numbers for Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, because this is going to be what this hinges on for the Washington Wizards. Russell Westbrook had a usage rate last year, even next to James Harden, who is maybe the most heavily used player in the NBA in terms of offensive possessions. He's always at or near the top.
Certainly.
34.4% for Russell Westbrook was his usage rate. Bradley Beal's usage rate, without John Wall, mind you, Bradley Beal was far and away the best player on the Washington Wizards. His usage rate was 34.4%. So what I am saying is something here probably has to give. And if we've seen anything in his career, Russell Westbrook is not terribly likely to give. So I don't know how this is going to go, but that makes me extremely nervous about it from the Washington point of view, that you have a high usage rate guy who's very inefficient next to a guy in Bradley Beal who's a budding superstar who is 6 years younger. I don't know. That gives me some pause, but then there are other parts of it that I sit there and I say, okay, maybe this could work. But my prevailing thought is that I really don't think I like this for the Wizards.
Yeah, if you're Bradley Beal, you kind of got to be throwing your arms in the air being like, what do I have to do to get what I need? He must, I can only imagine how frustrated he is right now. Because, Westbrook has not been producing at the level that he was at one point in his career. And even if he was, I would still be kind of disappointed if I was Bradley. So there's certainly that to take into account, that he's probably not happy right now. But also, this is another thing we mentioned right before the show, which is in the way this trade came about, it's almost like the two sides saw these two as equal to each other. Like they were the two missing puzzle pieces, with the exception of the way in the future draft pick that that the Wizards gave up to Houston. And to be honest with you, and just from the stats you read alone, the numbers don't lie. They are not equals, really, in any kind of way. So that is the part that really confuses me. And maybe there's more work to be done in both of these front offices that will make this a little easier of an equation to understand and to dissect with our eyes. But as of right now, this doesn't really make any sense to me.
Yeah, and let's move over to Houston now, because fascinating move for them. You referenced it at the top. If there was a Rockets player you thought was going to be traded imminently, you might not have initially said Russell Westbrook. You might have said James Harden. And James Harden obviously is still a top flight player in the NBA. There's been rumors about him going to Brooklyn. That could still happen. Who knows? It doesn't look like, this is according to Tim McMahon of ESPN, it does not look like anything's going to happen before the season opener. That's on December 22nd, which is 3 weeks away. But let's look at the fit here next to James Harden, because I think it's interesting to remember that the best basketball James Harden has played in his career was when he was next to Chris Paul in 17, 18, and 19, even though Chris Paul was kind of compromised that year. Mm-hmm. It was the year he won the MVP. They were just uber efficient. The team had a great year. It took the Warriors to Game 7 of the conference finals. John Wall is a lot more like that kind of fit than Russell Westbrook was. They traded for Russell Westbrook because they knew that the CP3 James Harden thing was not going to end up in a championship. Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody's going for. The Rockets thought they had something there. Chris Paul started to get hurt, go on the downside of his career. They traded him to OKC. He found a renaissance, but it wasn't going to work in Houston. Just was not going to. Yeah. So they traded for Westbrook. They said, let's try something different. It didn't work out. So now they trade him to Washington, albeit that's a different front office. We don't know what John Wall is going to be exactly. But if he can come back and he can be 80 to 90% of the player he was pre-injury, I actually think this could work out really well for Houston. And I think there are a lot of really intriguing possibilities for them, for Steven Silas, who is a first-year head coach of the Houston Rockets, and for Raphael Stone. This is his first big move that he has made as the GM. I would say kudos to him, because my initial reaction is I think the Houston Rockets won this trade.
I'm totally with you on that one. I don't disagree with anything in particular that you said. One thing is for certain, whether the Rockets end up winning this trade or not, I think they're going to come out the victors of it in the end, if that makes any sense. Because if you're James Harden right now, and there was a chance that you were not going to be playing in Houston this season, and now if you get rid of one of these guys, you can't really get rid of them both. Because what is that saying to your fan base? So, there's a good chance the Harden's going to stick around now. And if I were James Harden, this might be a much better scenario than it looked like a week ago for him, 24 hours ago for him, 12 hours ago for him.
1 hour ago for him.
I was going to see how long you were going to let me.
You were just going to count it down, right?
But my point is, Harden's a star. He is undoubtedly one of the best players in the NBA. Is he ever going to have a year again like his MVP year? He might. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he's still a top elite player, and you got to cater to those guys. This is a league where you have your top player, and you build the team around them. And Russell Westbrook was just not that fit for the Rockets, not for James Harden's Rockets, if we want to put it like that. Jeter's Yankees, James Harden's Rockets, kind of like that. So if I'm James Harden, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I want to stick around in Houston. Maybe they care about me. Maybe they want to build this team around me, because I'm a really viable asset to any team that has me. So if I'm James Harden, I'm thinking, this might have been the right thing to happen to me.
Yeah, and when I say something like they won the trade, it's as much about subtraction, as much as I hate to say that, because don't get me wrong, Russell Westbrook's a great player. He's done amazing things, but it was a square peg in a round hole in
Mhm.
Houston. It just didn't work.